You are live. Why isn't this working? Oh, come on with the Streamyard every time. All right, whatever. I don't think we're live on Instagram because, oh, there we go. Hi, look at that. Okay, now we are live. A few minutes late. Sorry about that, everybody. Welcome to the Love Pod. I'm Dina. That is my co-host, Vince, to the side of me, and Jeramey has just left the building. There he is. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Thank you so much for doing this. You guys are awesome. I really feel very lucky that anybody would pay attention to this podcast, let alone the cast of the show. So I am very appreciative that you're willing to give me your unsolicited opinions on season 7, which has also been a very interesting season.
It's definitely been something.
Yeah. What is it like watching it after you've been on it?
Vince, what are your thoughts?
Honestly, I think it's easy to be more sympathetic to people, right? Before going on, pretty judgy. Like, I have, don't get me wrong, I have opinions about people on this season, but for the most
Vince
part,
has an opinion about something.
I think it makes you, more sympathetic to them, right? It's hard having
I can see that
on you.
What about you, Jeramey?
So it's definitely interesting being able to watch it back, and have gone through the filming phases and the editing pieces of it. And to Vince's point, you do feel a lot more sympathetic towards people. But also, there's a few characters this season, even where I'm like, I know what edit I got, and I know how I came across, and even I'm like, damn, I don't like this person. And it's not that I don't like them as a person, it's that I don't like how they're portrayed. And maybe I won't like him because of that. It's been interesting, just some of the stuff that's already happened this early on.
Yeah, I say it time and time again. I try not to judge you guys until I've spoken with you and met you met you online, because I might think you're terrible in a relationship or terrible on the show, but then, like now, we're all chatting and you guys are awesome. So it's an important distinction. And you guys seem to get so much more hate than everybody universally loves the circle, with the exception of 1 or 2 players. Yeah. Why do you think the Love is Blind audience is so different?
It's a different demographic.
I think we're just held to a higher standard. I think Love is Blind has created this romanticized fairy tale image of what love is. Much like The Bachelor. Yeah. The Bachelor, I'm told, has tough fans too.
Yes.
These people are just Jeramey ending up with someone. This is a fairy tale. You mess it up. You messed up the fairy tale. We are out for blood, And I think that's kind of where the fans are coming after people for. Even just little things. It's crazy. We know the drama from our season. We got to live a little bit of it, but
Hi, Kevin.
It's just wild.
Kevin from the Circle said he knows a thing or two about getting hate on the Circle. Yeah, he was definitely one of the few who got it. And you guys are, I think, as a fan, I watched the first couple of seasons and it was easy to hate people too, because you're only seeing such a small part of you. But it's not the whole person. And it's really hard to read some of the things that you see online, especially knowing you all now. It's very different when you know everybody.
Well, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. One of the things that I learned, because I really struggled with kind of understanding where a lot of the hate came from. And obviously I know my situation was very polarizing and there was a lot to it. But when people when they would step aside from the hate comments and the death threats and all the other stuff that you were getting, and actually have a conversation of why this upset me. And what I realized was, in my particular situation, people in their real day-to-day lives had been through these types of situations. They've had somebody, go out and do things that they shouldn't have done, or they had bad relationships in the past. So when they see this and they're expecting to see this, to Vince's point, big fairy tale and all that stuff, and then it just falls apart, and then it's almost triggering in a way. So anybody I was able to have like genuine conversations with of like, why are you so upset right now? To me,
Sure.
this is a TV show. Obviously some of it is real. A lot of it, I hate to say, is kind of edited, but it is what it is. But it's really triggering for some people to see previous experiences they've been through happen again, and them not to expect it when they're trying to watch something where somebody's getting married, basically.
Yeah, I think, you know, one theory I do have, it's not a theory, I just think they take people's personalities and amplify them a lot. But also, you know, if you have 2 months of filming, like all day, every day for 2 months, and you only see 13 hours, you as a fan should be able to question, you know, what am I not seeing, right? What's the other side of the story? And Dina knows I'm not afraid to throw names out for like this season, for instance.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Leo's probably going through something. That guy is getting so much hate right now, and I hope he's doing okay.
Yes. I've actually on Leo. I've spoke to Leo a few times, just like checking in on him, making sure he's good, and basically just letting him know, like, hey man, it'll last for a few months, and you're going to deal with it, and you're going to see a lot of things that sucks online, but it all gets better. You know, people eventually do come to their senses a little bit more, and you know, it dies down. And I out of everybody right now, I feel for him and I feel for Brittany, because I feel like with Leo kind of walked into some things with the whole like
oh
stuff,
my God.
I loved it. But Brittany, on the other hand, like I feel like she's getting just an unnecessary amount of like torturous comments right now.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
Go ahead, Vince.
Sorry, I was gonna say I do, you know, watching it, see like, you know, maybe some performative looking statements from him that, okay, I get it, a little theater. But when you're on the show, you're kind of under the gun, right? To perform in a way, you know, to look good, to talk, you know. I'm not saying producers are out there telling you what to say or do, but they do want you to be vocal, you know. They will tell you to share your thoughts, right? Tell your truth. So
I've heard they're very good at either kind of keeping you there until they get a reaction, or if you've ever seen the show Unreal, if not, I highly recommend watching it. It just came on Netflix recently. And I'm not saying that's like to the millionth degree, but manipulating you into talking trash about other people. Did you ever feel like that?
It's not so much manipulation. What they do is, and again, I'm going to keep saying to Vince's point, because he keeps saying good things, to where like your personality is really amplified, either in a positive light or a negative light, depending on how, you know, that scene is going, basically.
Yeah.
And in my natural day-to-day life, I tend to keep to myself. I don't respond to a lot of things. I'm kind of more quiet. I'm a little more reserved, believe it or not. But the way they got it out of me on the show was, we get that you're quiet. We get that you don't have anything to say. But if you don't say this, nobody's going to know what you're thinking. And this is how it's going to be left. So then you start getting into your own head of like, oh, I have to come out and I have to say some of these things because I don't want it to be portrayed in a certain way. And I don't want people to think, you know, what they're going to think. But it is true. Like, you can have the right thoughts, but how it's perception is reality. And if it comes across a certain way, that's how you're going to be portrayed. So they're good about trying to get you to get that out of there so you can try to be viewed the way you want to be viewed.
Oh, 100%. I agree with that wholeheartedly. When you walk out and they're like, you know, if you don't let them know your side of the story, then that's all they're going to view.
Yep.
And then you sit there and you're like, millions of people are going to watch this. How should I act? What should I say? Should I say this? No, it's stupid. Kind of reminds me of that Disney movie about the emotions. What was that one?
Inside Out.
Inside Out 2, with like anxiety controlling the mind. When you're on that show, like joy is gone, all these people are gone, and anxiety's driving the train.
I need to watch the second one if it's about anxiety.
Yeah, I haven't seen the second one either, but the first one was so good. And I think if we step away from Delco, you brought up a good point in the chat. Like, okay, you guys you're on TV, you're filmed 24 hours a day. We see such a small portion of it, but realistically, you're only dating for 10 days. And then you step out into these real world situations and people change. And in any other dating scenario, if you've dated somebody for 10 days, it's very easy to just be like, oh, this person is not for me. And nobody gives you crap for moving on.
Right.
But because you got engaged, there's a little bit of a stigma. But again, you still only knew each other for 10 days. So the show really just amps that up. So good point.
I think this isn't talking poorly about the show at all. It's just a fact of it, to where that experiment as a whole, one of the biggest key aspects of that is, yeah, we're doing it blind and we're doing it in the pods and we're, sight unseen. It's the sequestered part of it. It's the fact that we don't have contact with the outside world. Because when I walked into it, admittedly, and Vince might have been the same way, I walk into it and I'm like, there's no way I can fall for somebody this quickly. I'm here for the experiment and I think it's a really cool idea, but there's no way. But then you get on set and you have this world going on around you 14 to 16 hours a day, depending on how long you want to date that day. Like if you've got night dating and all that stuff. So 14 to 16 hours a day, you've got no contact with the outside world. If you do it for the full, 10 days, that's basically 2 weeks. All you're doing is listening to other people talk about their emotions every day, all day. You're seeing other people getting excited about getting engaged, which makes you almost like not competitive, but feel like you have to be in that same situation with them.
Sure.
And then all the chips start falling together to get you into that mindset. But I've thought about this so many times where like if we weren't sequestered to the point where like we could call like our parents from a landline or something like that and be like, hey, this is what I did today. They would be like, you're out of your mind. What are you doing right now? You're having conversations about robot vacuum cleaners and that's enough for you to get married right now? Like, like what is going on? There's a lot of psychology that goes into it. And it does work for some people. Obviously there's some really successful couples. But you get back to that real world, and I feel like 80% of it, and I think the numbers even show for that, 80% of people get to that real world situation where they're back around people they know and they're like, hey, is this really what you want to do right now? This is kind of crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Vince, do you feel the same?
A little bit. I always felt like I was organizing the resistance. I was like the veteran, like, all right, no matter what, we leave here as a team. No one's going home alone. You don't have to do this. Like
15 engagements in the Charlotte season.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about the bromances and like the sisterhoods too? I feel like they didn't show as much of it in your season. They're showing a little bit more now. And I love that. You guys obviously stay friends. Was that worth what you had to go through on the show?
To have a sisterhood with Jeramey? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You guys are sisterhood of the traveling pants. For sure.
Honestly, I think one of my favorite, it was kind of bittersweet, but one of my favorite moments from filming was there was one night where we had stayed and done night dating and it was really late and the lights are always on in the lounges and all that stuff. It's bright in there. And we got done filming at probably like 2 o'clock in the morning, one morning. And Vince had asked for them to bring in mezcal one time. And
of course you did.
For whatever reason, they actually had all the lights off in the studio and back on in like the back part of our lounge area, there was two little like single wide chairs, like two little green chairs sitting back there. And Vince and I just went and sat back there, passing the bottle of mezcal back and forth to each other, not saying a word, but just like almost kind of like just sitting there like, are we really doing this right now? Like nothing was said, just two dudes just bromancing, chunking out of a bottle of mezcal, like, and then basically getting drunk and falling asleep at the hotel.
Nice.
Yeah. Lots of sexual tension. You could cut it with a chainsaw.
Whoa.
I didn't say all that, but
I'm kidding. No, I agree with Jeramey. I agree with Jeramey. I thought he was going to be a smartass and be like, there was just a great
he is a little bit
when they escorted Vince off the set, and we were all.
Well, no. So the reason it was bittersweet was the next morning you were gone.
Yeah, I was.
That was what sucked. So
One
like,
night
our
stand.
last moment together is us sitting there getting drunk, drinking mezcal.
9 times a day. So I went to the bathroom, and when I came out, there was like an army of producers standing around me, like, so. And I was, I'm just oblivious. I'm like, hey, high fives all around. Like, oh, so there comes the time when people have to go home.
Oh no!
And I was in the lounge, like it was like 6 hours later, and finally I was like, has Vince been on dates this whole time? And like everybody's just standing there really quiet, like all the producers and stuff, and I'm like, what's going on? And then our guy Carlos comes up and he's like, oh no, he's gone. He got sent home, and I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I guess no bye or anything. So see ya.
Carlos was like bouncing the door like this, like you don't get past me.
But no, they had a lot of romance. I mean, Vince and Trevor were really close.
Singing.
Yeah, there
singing
was
this season.
There was all types of. I mean, we were singing. There was that song, "I Just Killed My Ex," by what's her name? I can't remember the name of the song, but we sang that every day on the way to the on the way to the studio.
That's nice,
because it seems like
different
every time
vibe then.
Well, yeah, but no, it's like we didn't pick the song, but every time we got in the van to drive to set, that song was on for some reason. So it became like the season's song. It was, and Jamal kind of led that charge, which was pretty funny.
I wish we saw more of him. I really do. I follow him on Instagram, and he's incredible.
Yeah. He's a sweetheart, and if he's listening, I stopped by the shop today to see you, and you weren't there. So,
oh, he's a busy man.
He is.
All right, so the villains of the season, I think you guys might know a little bit about them. So let's start with, I thought for sure Brittany was going to get that villain edit. She had a line in her bio, which again, the bios, we'll start with part 1. She was talking about her spiciness level. And I was like, oh, this is the villain for sure. I didn't think she came across that bad compared to some of the other cast. What do you think the hate is for her?
I think she's a pretty girl who might have said a couple of ditzy things, you know, about the previous dating life, the not cooking thing. I think anytime you have someone on like that, it's just gonna garner hate for whatever reason. Like it's a playful tone. There's nothing bad about it, and I don't know. I don't think she's deserving of all that. She seems like a very nice person.
I don't think so. She seems very sweet. Again, maybe not what people like to see somebody looking for in a relationship, but they don't have to date her. So, you know.
Well, you know, let's be honest. Love is Blind has gotten a lot of complaints about people requesting that people look more pedestrian or homely on the show. And so
she definitely,
when they're like, oh my God, this person is, you know, beautiful. You know, it's only beautiful people dating. And that probably when somebody's very, very pretty, it does rub them the wrong way. And I mean, you know, as far as edits go, she could be a horrible human being, and she just got a good edit.
Sure.
But you know, for the most part, if you act well, they're not gonna like go out of their way to crucify you. I
would hope not, but we've seen obviously Trevor's perfect match edit, or lack thereof, where he could have really had a redemption arc, and it seemed like they really tried to cut him out of the show. And obviously, Jeramey, you got a lot of hate, and Vince, you got some hate after the articles came out that you were talking about your experience. So everybody kind of gets it from one angle or another, except I feel like there's very rare exceptions of like the Laurens and Camerons and Tiffany and Brett.
Unless you're like the golden couple, or if you're the only way a guy doesn't get hate is if you're the one that's left at the altar.
Yeah.
That's the only way you escape it. It's either you get married and it's the golden couple, or you are the guy who just got left at the altar and you'll get sympathy that way. Other than that, you're going to be the demon of the season.
Yeah. I should rephrase that. They're not going to go out of your way to make you look good if you're an asshole.
Yeah.
I think that's a better way to say, oh, thank you for the love, Juanita. That's so sweet. Okay. Now, we talked a little bit, Vince, you touched on this, about people wanting to see different things on the show. One of the biggest things I see a complaint about in the Facebook groups, at least, is I want to see, age-wise, older people maybe more ready for marriage. And this season was like by 0.5, the average age was the oldest of any of the prior Love is Blind seasons. Now, again, not by much. Hannah was the youngest, I believe, at 26. And then Milton was the youngest ever at 24. But you can really see a difference maturity-wise between the two of them with only 2 years difference. So I really don't think age has that much to do with it. I think people, even though they say they want to see different body types and different types of people online, I think they'd give the same amount of hate.
Yeah, I mean, I was 35 when we filmed. Would they want to pull me out of a retirement home or something?
Yes, they did actually. You know, the Golden Bachelor and the Golden Bachelorette are really popular.
Yeah. Well, I'm almost there. I got the grays, so you know.
I'm older than you. I'm 40. And let me tell you, the dating scene, not great at 40 either, guys. So there's going to be drama no matter what.
Yeah.
Okay. Thoughts on Hannah? Jeramey, we'll start with you.
I'm trying to be nice, and I'm trying to be nice because I don't think it's like entirely a her thing. I think that Hannah could be sweet. I think she might be a little immature, just for that specific situation. And I think the reason that it's coming out as strong as it is because she just doesn't like Nick. Like she doesn't like the guy. She doesn't. I don't think she has the coping to handle that. Maybe.
Yeah.
And then also you're being filmed as all of this is happening. Like I watched the scene today actually with Nick on the duck thing. And she kind of just like, that could have been a moment to where like you kind of laugh and joke about it because he was trying to be funny about it. And she was just like, I hate you. But I shouldn't say it, but you can see it in her eyes.
I'm too cool to ride a duck. Like, girl, that makes you not cool.
No, go get on the duck. And like, I think it's when you're younger, and I say this being 32 now, like I'm learning as I'm getting older, you care less about what people think as you get older. When you're in your 20s, you care a lot more because you want to care more about your image and stuff. But like, if she's a little bit older, maybe in her 30s, earlier 30s, might be over on the duck with him. That could have been a totally different scene for her. I don't know. She came across very insecure, constantly talking about like the looks piece of it. Like what she wanted to know about his looks, but it also made her insecure about maybe how she looked. And there was too much emphasis on that. It reminds me of someone from my season.
Who might that be?
Nah, I'm not. I won't call it.
No, that's all right. Speaking of calling people out, Vince, you want to touch a little bit on that one?
Our season?
Just the Hannah.
I love your Hawaiian shirts, Jeramey. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
I swapped it out.
I haven't seen one in a while.
Yeah, I wore one in LA, and I swapped it out for the Creed shirt this weekend or for this one. So we're making up for it.
That's the most I'll get into that, Dina, about our season is telling me Hawaiian shirts, despite what anyone says.
Well, what about your thought? Yes, Juanita, I agree. She should have been honest and told him she's just not that into him. But I think in the vein of the show, she's trying to give it a shot. I'll give her the benefit of the doubt. Vince, your thoughts on Hannah?
I kind of peruse the interwebs to kind of get just to see what other people's opinions are. Again, I thought similarly to kind of Leo, she didn't show well, right? And it's like, okay, you take people at their words at least. But a lot of the hate I saw on the internet from people were people kind of like comparing her to someone in our season who had kind of like misrepresented her looks. And I was like, oh, that seems to be a theme going around. Looks are such a hard thing because like, if love is blind, then it really doesn't matter, right? I mean, I guess
love is blurry.
You don't want to
Love is a shake.
Like,
shake.
Somebody doesn't want to come. A girl doesn't want to come to the reveal, and Quasimodo comes out, right? That would not be great, right? I would be pretty pissed off myself. But looks don't need to matter that much, right? So.
Yes, Delco. Everybody really is nice in person that I've talked to. I haven't met anybody who's sorry. I'm just reading the comments as they come up. I haven't met any of you guys who's like just straight up nasty, though. I will say there's a couple who I think there's a super fan, Melanie, who's really good at sussing out who the cast is going to be way ahead of time and digging up all sorts of information. And I think she scared the season 7 cast because
she did.
A couple of them blocked her.
We all know Melanie.
Yes.
I was talking to her on my flight yesterday.
Melanie's very sweet. Be nice to her.
Yeah, she is. She's harmless.
She's not gonna come find you or anything. She's very sweet. She just cares about
Melanie is incredibly nice, but I don't know where or how she finds the information she does. Because like I'll hear she was like when our season came out, and Vince was probably dealing with the same thing. She's telling me things about me that I had never even like announced anywhere, and I'm like, "Are you like the FBI?
Yeah?
Like what is going on right now?"
She's telling me what we're wearing right now. Like what?
Yeah.
She's like, in the future, you will have
funny
broken
thing
up a
that
second
Jeremy
hand.
did was, Rasmus, Jeremy? Because Rasmus came and hung out with all the cast so much, we were all friends with him. So I could not convince her for the life of me that he was not on the show. I thought that was the funniest thing.
No, when she gets on a subject, she is on that, and you're not coming off it.
No, it's just the fan thing. I've talked a little bit about like why I've started the podcast before, and it's a hobby, right? And some people get more into it than other people do. And she really means well, and I didn't mean to get off on that aside, but just fans are really intense about this show in particular. I don't think I try to get her to like work with the show before. I think she's got her own thing going on, but it's an intense fan base. More so, I've watched The Bachelor. I've kind of lurked in that fan base. The Challenge. Nobody gets as much diverse fan opinions as you guys do. So I guess congrats on that.
It is congrats, but I don't know if we're planning on talking about this at some point during this, but this season seems different than our season did. Like, our season was very intense, and by the time the reunion was coming, people's followers bases had gone up, and the amount of hate that was out there, and all this information was just nuts about our season. They've got to be close to the time of filming their reunion right now, and it doesn't seem like that level of engagement is the same on this one.
No,
I don't know if that was just me seeing that, but it's like it's not the same as it was for maybe our season, and that could just be me being biased because that's what we were paying attention to. But if I'm looking at the metrics, like, it's not trending the same way right now, and I don't know why.
No, it's not. I've kind of peeked at like even the UK season and watching everybody's numbers, and I don't follow them religiously, but Pop Culture Data does a really good job of like comparing follower growth and things like that for different reality shows. And the growth is not that intense. Like the fact that people are answering DMs so quickly tells me it's still not to the level that you guys are like season 1 were at.
Well, it's picking up, and I like at Leo, for example. Like I checked Leo, just talking about him again. I looked because you get curious about that stuff of like you can tell the engagement level of people from the show based off of people's follower accounts and how fast it's happening. He did just have a bump to go from like 4,000 to 10,000 over the last couple of days. So it looks like it might be coming in now, but the initial bump just wasn't there like it usually is.
Yeah.
Vince, what was your experience like? Did you have a ton of followers post show, or because you weren't really shown, it came out after the articles?
Well, interestingly enough, right when the announcement happened, I got like a shit ton of buzz, and my followers spiked up to like pretty much where they're at right now, and then just leveled off because I wasn't like really featured all that much. But like in the beginning, it just went like straight up and then just plateaued when the show came out. I think people were expecting me to be on there a lot. I don't know why, but
yeah, I was too, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? But Jeremy's a hard guy to replace, so I understand why another is not going to be as popular without him there to back it up, right? I mean, it's true. I do want to give the producers some props, right? Because there are some great producers. Not everybody's a great producer, but there's some great producers. And on season 7, I was pretty astonished with it. Just felt a little more positive, right? Showing the camaraderie a little more, showing the a little more. And I thought, that in my mind is how our season should have been. Ours felt really focused on a lot of negative aspects. Did those negative aspects happen? For the most part, yes. But were there a lot of good, positive, friendly scenes? Yes, there were a lot of those. And
for the amount of negatives that we had, that might have been 10% of what actually happened behind the scenes. Yeah. And all of that was shown, and none of the good like bonding moments, like us singing and like having we have this thing, actually our group chat from the show is called the what is it, the King's Circle? Is that what you call it? Yeah. So
King's Court. So before we would go to film every day, and like they recorded us doing this and none of it made it in. We'd have like in the lounge, everybody be circled around on the couches, and we're talking about our previous day, and like we're going through the camaraderie, that whole experience, and they were on us the whole time.
didn't show any of that kind of stuff that we were doing, and like
Right.
how we're supporting each other and literally like picking each other up and carrying each other. They showed me sitting in Matt's lap, but they don't show anything else. Like, but they wanted to focus on, you know, the fights and the negativity, and maybe right there is why we got the bumps we did so early on, because people like the negativity. Like, it's easier to engage in that than like somebody going through good stuff.
Have you been in America? Yeah, people love negativity.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just what these people thrive on these days.
Yeah.
They don't want a heartwarming story. They want blood and carnage, and then they want to go out and pretend like they don't.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line of America in 2024.
Yeah.
You know, I think on reality TV, there has to be a balance. You don't want zero drama, despite the fact everybody like Juanita. Yes, we do hope that real love exists, but the odds of finding it in general on a reality show, not that great. Love is Blind has a decent, I think, chance, but there's always like one solid couple, right? Who maybe there's manufactured drama, and then everybody else is a little bit of a mess. But we didn't get that lead in with season 7 of the mess to come, and like all the things that are coming out now that everybody for sure knows who the cast is. And it felt like that in the beginning, from the beginning with you guys. Yes. We're going to get there, but first we did touch on Leo. So we'll start with you, Vince. What do you think of him as potentially a person outside of the show, and how he appears on the show?
Well, and firstly, I don't know him. So, you know, when I criticize somebody without knowing them, you know, I don't want to sound like a bad guy at all. He felt a little scripted and performative in a lot of what he said and did, right?
Yeah.
It felt like a lot of us on the show. I have an opportunity, and if anybody's watching or there's a fan and, you know, you get invited on the show, like, one, yeah, you want to find love, but 2, it could change your life fundamentally and, you know, make you well off the rest of your life. So you do need to use that opportunity as best you can. I'm not saying go on there and fake it, but yeah, when people look scripted, I mean, it's not a great look. I don't know what his, you know, other than what he said about losing family members, I don't know what his life's like, you know? Just could have been the life-changing moment he needed. Maybe it wasn't scripted. Maybe he just seems like an actor. I don't know. But I did think that there were some points that seemed insincere, but you really can't judge him because you just don't know that. You know, he's probably just a decent guy who was out there trying his best, right? And you don't know if a producer was in his ear. I'm not saying that they did that when we were there, but a new producer wanting to do well could have been in his ear saying, you know, go out and do this. You just never know.
I know for a fact that on this season there was new, like for fact that there was a lot of newer producers on this one. And to your point, they were probably trying to make a little bit of a name and trying to get, because it sounds weird, but they do want their person to succeed. It's like a competition on set.
Kind of read it on it. You know, each couple people are assigned a producer. So like Trevor, Ben, and me had the same producer who is a sweetheart. I love her. She's the most wonderful woman. I'm gonna say her name, Solange. Awesome human being.
Yeah. A shout out to Solange.
Got very lucky with her. But you know, I could kind of see in the corner maybe other producers that, you know, maybe were more helicopter parents. That's a good term. Helicopter parents, and they want you to do well because they're kind of getting rated off of you, right? And so, you know, you do have that dynamic.
Again, I cannot recommend Unreal enough, and I'd be interested. Maybe we'll do like a whole Unreal episode. But so on that show, they get a cash bonus if their contestant makes it to the finale, and then another one if they win the show. And they have already plotted out a timeline, like who's the wifey? This one needs to get eliminated because they're not interesting. Like this one needs to make it so far. And I'm not saying that happens, but I can understand how some of that dynamic is real. That translates into, it had to come from somewhere, right? They didn't just make this up out of thin air. It was, I think, written by a producer from another reality show.
And none of what we go through is scripted. However, to Vince's point, and I had a producer that was like this. They'll come out, and as soon as you get done with a specific conversation, you get to the point where you're there enough days where you're like, for what I just talked about, as soon as I come out of this room, this producer's going to be standing out in that hallway. And they're like, oh, how was that conversation? Because they can hear everything you're saying all the time. So when you know something juicy had just happened, you can anticipate them being there. And then like, oh, let's go straight to an interview. Let's go do it, an on the fly interview. We got to talk about this. We got to do that. So they're not telling you what to say, but they pick up on something they like. And then the conversation gets guided because you're forced to talk more about it. Not forced, but you're recommended to talk more about it.
Yeah. Well, let's talk to, there are, this show is real, and there are true love stories. Johnny and Amy live in my neighborhood, and so on my way home yesterday or the day before, it was really cute. I drove by them holding hands, walking down the street, right? Two people who are truly in love, wholesome, awesome couple, just great to be around. So, the formula does work. It's not going to work for everyone. They're not going to line up like 15 guys and 15 girls and everyone's going to match, right? You got to think that, you might get one or two a season that really match up. And that's pretty awesome that they even do that, given that you have 10 days to kind of find a soulmate, right? I mean,
and I will say, a broken clock is right twice a day, right? So the odds of somebody finding somebody in that group is pretty good. But then there's all these unseen engagements from this season, from your season, from other seasons. I forget which one. I think UK, there were supposed to be like 11 engagements, and they only have so much time to show them. But to put us through 5 episodes of Leo and Brittany just to not follow them, and I've read it's because they didn't think they were going to work out. Obviously, but we know that every season there's just couples that I don't know, Jeramey, but just didn't seem like they were going to work out long term and still were chosen to be followed. So why give that long storyline just to give us like 2 seconds of a typewritten screen about why they weren't followed? Would you have hoped that was your experience on the show?
Are you talking about like what I went through in particular?
Yes.
So here's the thing is between, I don't even like saying her name, but the girl I got engaged to, or the woman I got engaged to originally.
You got engaged?
Yeah, I got engaged. No, so well, obviously Laura and I got engaged. I was just kidding. But I think what we experienced was different in the pods compared to like what Leo and Brittany were experiencing. Because Laura and I, in the pods, I feel like we did have a really good connection. They showed like the weird parts of it with like and cleanliness and like, but we talked about a lot of other deeper things. It was when we got to the real world is when that was when our part kind of just took it turned into a dumpster fire as soon as we got to basically on the vacation. But I feel like I guess that makes me question Leo and Brittany's more, just because I think maybe one of the things that did keep them on there is, to be honest, I haven't really seen a whole lot of other substance with some of these other couples, and with Leo, talking about the Rolex and talking about the money and talking and doing the the kissy faces and stuff like that. You almost have to put that in there just because it's like it's so over the top. Like it's so over the top.
It is. It sounds vain. I'm fairly well off. I didn't mention that once in the pods. I was like,
Vince, that's all you talked about. Come on, that's all you talk about now.
So I've got a genuine theory about this one.
Your daddy situation.
I've got a theory about this one to where I might be one of the only people who think this. I do not think Leo was saying that with any sort of malice. I think that was something that he was genuinely concerned with.
Oh yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
Genuinely concerned with this. And he was bringing it up and he was talking about it. Do you need to talk about it in the lounges all the time? No, that's a little weird. But when you're in the pods with somebody, you should be talking about that, because very short time frame. We're expected to like get our inner demons out with a person within 10 days to figure out if we're going to get engaged to them or not. So he's talking about that. And again, editing can be your best friend. It can be something that's really negative. And I feel like he talked about it a lot. He was genuinely concerned about it. He wasn't trying to like flaunt it. And then the editing piece of it came in because he had to have said it so many times to where they were like, we're putting this in. Like, we're gonna put.
Yeah. Vince, thoughts on Leo's Rolex and money conversations?
I mean, it seemed a little forced at times. I mean, I think it is stuff you need to talk about to an extent in the pods, right? I mean, it is fair to say, hey, I've dated and people have, kind of been after me for money, and that's pretty much.
Do you know I'm an art dealer?
Where you need to leave. I'm an art dealer. Pretty much where you need to leave. But I didn't talk about my watch collection or my sunglass collection or anything else. I didn't talk about
sunglasses. What kind of sunglasses are you rocking? Hold on, let me kick them out because I don't know if you can hear them.
He's a Prada guy.
I'm a Tom Ford guy. I love Tom Ford sunglasses.
Nah, don't let him fool you. He's a Prada guy. He wears a little Gucci.
Yeah.
Got his Gucci belt.
Yeah, are you wearing a belt with your t-shirt right now, Vince?
I am. No, I came from the gym, straight from the gym. Jeramey knows about that. He's swole.
About the gym?
Oh, yeah. He knows all about the gym.
Speaking of working out, that was another topic of conversation, not necessarily the gym, but Hannah brought this up a lot about being self-conscious about her weight. And it seemed like the conversations kind of, and I don't know if this was editing again or just like the bulk of conversations, are there dedicated days where like you talk about your activities and your fitness level, whatever, your hobbies, or you talk about finances or other mainstream topics? Do they like kind of, okay, today's the day we're going to talk about money, for example, or is it?
They have a day for everything.
I'll be right back. I'm gonna grab something.
Okay. Drop this notebook. I have mine in storage, but
I know not everybody has theirs.
And like an emotional day, and there's a day for everything.
Was that helpful, or did that feel forced?
Oh, it's very helpful. It wasn't forced on you, but it's like, I think they understand, you're surrounded by cameras and you're supposed to date. Like it's, people might freeze up. It might be good to have some questions lined up that maybe I wouldn't have thought about, but.
There it is. All right, Jeramey, give us the tea.
So I don't know what happened to mine, but it looks like it's been through a shredder.
That was it's a destruction journal. You were just kind of venting on it.
It's looking crazy right now. I'm trying to find it. So this is funny. I haven't seen a lot of this in a long time. Yeah.
I want to see yours too, Vince. I want to see everybody's.
I haven't seen it in a while.
So they basically, I don't know if Vince said this, but we don't have to talk about anything in particular.
Sure.
But on certain days, what they'll do is you'll have, I don't have it in here, which kind of sucks, is when you see his compared to mine, mine's pretty beat up. But
you've just seen better days.
It's bad.
Kind of like your experience. Maybe it's like,
I don't know what happened to that thing, but it's bad. So they'll give you these prompts, and like you'll open up your notebook because you leave your notebook on set every night. And then when you get there, they'll be like, maybe today's the day you talk about like family values, maybe religion, maybe whatever else. And if I don't know if like weight and working out would have been that kind of topic that they would have put in there, because it's all about not talking about visual stuff.
No, I was thinking more hobbies.
Yeah, there might have been like, what hobbies do you have that day? And those questions are solely there to where if you don't have anything else to talk about and you're having like a hard time with it, hey,
sure,
it kind of breaks the ice. But the cool thing is if you have a good connection with somebody, you don't ever use the prompts because you're just excited to go and talk to that person.
All right, Vince, you're up. What's in that little journal you got going on?
Today I had a date with Jeramey. He was really sweet. He talked about his love for working out and eating clean. I think no, I'm just kidding. No, I have stuff in here. It's all chicken scratch, right? I just happened to open up to Brittany, and I don't know. I just wrote down very like short things. Headhunter, high energy, some stuff about her past relationship, wants kids 2 to 4. And then I would put a rating on top of people. And I would try to like, the first date, I was like, it's automatically a 5, right? And then the next date, I was like, kind of like re-gauging people. And I was like, okay, that one went way worse. So maybe 5 was more like a 7, right? So it is funny the way, you kind of take notes in here. But most of my stuff, I didn't really feel like I needed notes after the first day because I was like, you know what? There's really, probably no reason for this. I just want to get people to kind of open up and see how I feel about them. I didn't really want notes to drive, who I was going to end up with. So
Sure.
maybe that's why I didn't. So.
15 women, that's hard to keep track of. If I was dating 15 men at the same time, I don't know that I could remember everybody's names. I could probably remember other dogs' names, but their actual names, I don't know.
Did you read any of the questions out here while I was gone, Jeramey?
Nope.
You're muted.
Yeah, Jeramey, we can hear you.
I couldn't find
There.
my questions, but I have a lot of the things that I wrote down from the first dates. So the first day we do it, they give us a tier list that you have to do like your top 15.
Okay.
This one came back to bite me in the ass because it was bad. I'm surprised it didn't make it into the season because I remember it being recorded in the Dominican. Laura and I get to the Dominican Republic, right? And we're laying in bed, we're watching the show, or not watching the show, we're watching the water. I don't know what we were doing. Anyways,
you're watching your experience.
Each other. Yeah, we're sitting there like just getting recorded and stuff like that. And they're like, oh, who was, bring out your top list, who it was. Because I was confidently saying, Laura, you've always been at the top. Laura, you've always been at the top. Laura, you've always been at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And I pull out the list and I'm prepared to be like, let me show you, you were always at the top. And I pull this list out and you see the name that's up at you probably can't see it.
I can't really see it, no.
So my top list is Sarah Ann, Laura, actually Amy Kai, who she wasn't even on the, you never see her.
No, she's so sweet though.
Yeah, and then it's funny looking, and then we'll move past this, but this is also funny. So I rated Laura a 10, so she was always at my top. Once kids, career focused. I'm not gonna say that part of it. It wasn't bad. I don't want to sell her out or anything.
No, you're good. You're good.
And then my next date was actually with Sarah, and I rated her a scale of 1 to 10, a 9.5. So she came in under Laura, but it was a 9.5. And all I wrote was very similar to me.
Okay, that's all you needed.
I'm taking notes right now. Jeramey, really, really good at rating women.
I will say, did you guys know there's a Love is Blind game, like phone game?
Yeah.
Have you looked at it at all?
No.
Okay. So in this game, there is, for research purposes, obviously, I've played it before. You guys are not in it. It's not like based on real people on the show, except Nick and Vanessa do make an appearance.
Shocker.
So there's...
They probably spend more time on this game than they do on set. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I could see that actually, because they do come in quite a bit. But they're not by name. They're just very similar to them. But anyway, so throughout the season, obviously it plays out exactly how you think. You pick somebody, you can make choices throughout the show, but then two of the women fall for each other. So I don't think it's completely far-fetched that, and I know people want an LGBTQ season or a bi season, like I get that, but I could see it happening if there's, bi people on the show who are dating. It's funny because you guys joke about it, but it is a forced storyline in the game because no matter what your choices are, the women end up together at some point and leave the game together.
Yeah.
So it happens in a scenario.
Do we just have private lounges for everyone if it's all guys?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that it's like a thing that if they find out that, I'm not going to go down this road. I'm not going to go down this road.
Understandable.
It's one of those things. I don't particularly care, but I think it's a challenge that you'd run into that if you find out that someone is other than straight right now, especially when you're filming, you might be removed because you could end up falling if you're falling for someone who's the same sex as you. You see them every day. You get to know them every day.
Yeah.
Not to say that that person's going to reciprocate that back, but it presents its own challenges. Not to say that it shouldn't be done, because 100%, if you can figure out how to work that out, do it. That could be awesome. It's a completely different concept, but I think there might be rules in place, and I'm saying I think. But if they find out about that, I think there's a penalty. Not a penalty, but
it's called The Circle, and I fell for Olivia. So
who didn't fall for Olivia? Come on now.
But you would have to really do it kind of like The Circle, where you're just all
by yourself.
Yeah, everybody's separate.
And
which they did a single season and it didn't work out great. And they kind of tried to make this season a little bit like that. But then 2 cast members ended up getting together. So who knows? I do want to talk a little bit about the couples, but right before we get into that, I think, Jeramey, you brought up a good point when you're talking about they make sure that they're, they try to potentially make sure there's not going to be conflicts in that way. There's a lot of things coming out that this season, and I don't know if you guys will know the answer to this, but I feel like if they were really researching people, it should be easy to find some of the drama that's coming out, like with Tyler having children, and that isn't addressed, at least that we see with his fiance. And do you know how much the producers and the casting department like really researches you guys? Do they tell you that, or is it kind of top secret?
So I have very personal experience with that. Vince can hopefully agree with me on this one because I talked to him about it too. When we filmed and before we filmed and when I was going through casting, I was very specific to say I was previously engaged. I never hid that from anybody. I talked about it openly in the pods. I talked about it openly in the lounge, talked about it everywhere. It was not a secret for anybody. But then it starts leaking that he was previously engaged. He was this, he was that. I tried going to our team and being like, let me please address this. This was never hidden from anybody. But what it does is it creates a ton of drama, which again, people love watching the drama. And then if you go to the reunion, I think Nick and Vanessa asked both Sarah and Laura, hey, did you know that he was previously engaged? They say yes, and they just move right past it. I went through months of hell with that for them to be like, no, he didn't lie about that. Okay, let's move past it. So Tyler could be experiencing a very similar situation where he maybe did talk, and this is me just speculating.
Yeah.
Maybe he did talk about it, but they're selectively not putting that out because it helps gather drama. Because when Chelsea was on our season, she had talked about being previously married.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was previously engaged. Why was hers mentioned and mine wasn't?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vince.
I think like day one when we were at the hotel, Jeramey told us at breakfast, and then reiterated it several times. So, the show needs to know that if they don't say something about it and people don't know, that is the viewers don't know, like for Jeramey's situation, that was engaged before the show, then when someone comes out and is like, oh yeah, we were engaged and Jeramey never mentioned it once, they need to know, yeah, he's going to get crucified for it. They know the level of these fans. And they can't just throw their hands up and be like, oh, the fans are crazy. Well, you kind of have a responsibility. It's almost to the level of negligence if, I were a lawyer or something. And they put somebody in that kind of harm's way where he kind of started getting constant threats. And they knew that he was engaged and they didn't release that information. And then he tried to remedy it and they wouldn't allow him. So that's not great. I mean, and then the other aspect of it is, his engagement was fairly close to the show. Yeah. But we don't know we're going on the show all that far out, right? People got recruited. I got recruited very, very early.
I got recruited so we filmed in February, March.
Yeah, we filmed March.
I got recruited late November.
Yeah.
So mine was bam, bam, I was done.
I got recruited September, but maybe one other person I talked to, they were like, oh yeah, they reached out to me in September. Most people, it was November. Yeah. And then, I think Johnny was an alternate. So he didn't even know.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
They were like, hey, you want to go on this show? So.
And Amy almost didn't go on at all because she had a trip planned. So that really worked out great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say it is much tougher. Very long time ago, I worked on a show called Big Man on Campus. And even back then, that was in the early 2000s, it was very difficult to find men. So they ended up twisting the show. Instead of one woman and a bunch of guys, it was one guy and a bunch of women. And having done a Bachelor in Paradise spinoff, and from what I've heard, it's very difficult to find men to do these shows as opposed to women who are just applying in record numbers. And with Tyler, I don't know either way. We don't know if he talked about, having kids or not. But I also think that's a hard position because you don't know if they're going to disclose it when they're dating in the future. So if he told producers or not, let's say he didn't, yeah, they should probably dig into his social media and look for it. But let's say he told them and then just ended up not saying anything to anybody in the pods. We don't know how that's going to play out yet. The one concern I have is more, not if you're engaged, not as much if you have kids, but the domestic violence allegations, I think, are really tough because those are public records. They're easy to find. And more so on The Bachelor, it's come out where there have been, like the winner of last season of Jen Tran's season, Devin, he had a restraining order and quite of other paper trail of things coming out about him. And that's my main concern because people can scrub their social media of kids or of ex-fiancés, but public records, of dangerous situations, whether they're alleged or not, are more concerning to me. So I don't think it's totally on the producers, but
no, I mean,
I am
they
interested.
do a good background check. I mean, I submitted to a full background check.
Yep.
Jeramey, the same, we sign off on that. It's fairly thorough. I mean, there is a level of due diligence that like on The Bachelor, for instance, they might not be doing the background checks that they do on Love is Blind. Love is Blind is pretty thorough. And, there are some opportunities for people to be dishonest, sure. But, that's not great if The Bachelor's doing that. They should be able to find these people.
Yeah, even on the Golden Bachelorette, there's another contestant now who allegedly has domestic violence record. And it's crazy to me that would, they would even want that.
I mean, again, we're talking about more personal experiences here. I got accused of that afterwards. And that's that one's a tough one to talk about just because of how crazy that whole situation was. But you've got a lot of people. You got a lot of people that they see that other people are getting attention for exposing for this and that. And like, it's really easy for people to lie and not understand while you're getting that attention, you could potentially be altering someone else's life by making that kind of statement. And whether he did it or not, you never know that, and that's fine. But if there is no record of it really happening, and if there is no record of somebody being arrested for this thing, I think it is so irresponsible for people to be going around and just spreading more of this stuff. Like you are messing with people's lives at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've said
this. If you do, word of caution to sensationalists out there who want like 5 minutes of fame or whatever. If you start making up stuff and going after people without evidence of fact, you are opening yourself up to hard defamation lawsuits.
Yes.
You might think you can say whatever you want, but when you make a false factual statement about someone that is harmful to their reputation or career, you are going to get crucified in court.
Yeah, words from an attorney, guys. Listen to that. Because I will say, with so many people, especially this season, kind of having been targeted for, I'll just say accusations. We don't want to get in legal trouble, but for all these different accusations coming out, I said some of these have to not be true, right? Because there are people who want to get on it for their 5 minutes of fame or whatever it might be. And there's been photo evidence of like Tyler's situation, for example. But some of the other things coming out, I'm like, every contestant cannot have this big drama bag. I'm very sensitive to the domestic violence thing because I've been through it myself. And my ex was definitely one to say, no, it wasn't me. And I was there. I know what happened. And if he had gone on a show like this, I would absolutely want people to know. But I can also see on the flip side, people trying to take advantage of the situation. And maybe they thought, I want to say maybe it was Trevor or somebody else where somebody dated casually and the person really ramped up the story to make it seem way more serious than it was. And Trevor. I could see that happening too.
Yeah, no, I think it was Trevor. And again, being through like that experience myself with that, you don't, while you're getting attention and while you're having, a good time with all that, it is what it's great for you, I guess. It is. It's not.
Yeah, but nothing ever comes of it. Like I haven't seen anybody who's come out with these stories, whether they're true or not,
It's just a dopamine
achieved.
kick. People get a dopamine kick from it. They're getting attention. They're getting all this positive praise and all this other stuff. And it's just a dopamine kick.
Do you remember that TikToker who made a bunch of money off of Jimmy?
Oh, yeah.
She was like, oh, my fiance, I'm madly in love with
him.
And I just found out he was on Love is Blind, which, just FYI, if the first time you find out your fiance was on Love is Blind is when the show came out, you're an idiot. Because that is just pasted. Like, there's no hiding that. Like, everybody in Charlotte, by the time the show came out, or at least
knew who we were.
6 months prior, knew who I was. People were coming up to me like, "Oh yeah, you were on the show. I heard." Like, okay, people know.
And you were new to town, so even more so.
Yeah. So you know what happens where people are using it. I'm told she made a lot of money by just making up this story, which is sad because Jimmy's out of it. So
I haven't spoken to Jimmy. Again, everybody seems nice. Again, Chelsea also, I think, wasn't ready for a relationship similar to Hannah, but I've only had positive experiences talking to her. Yeah. So everybody seemed great. And you're not always your best self in the wrong relationship as you would be in the right relationship or hanging out with your friends. So I think that's important to mention too. But this is going to have to be 2 parts because we are an hour in so far and we really didn't touch on the actual couples.
Yeah.
So let's start.
That side road that I like to take us down.
It happens, and I'll gab all day. I'm a yapper, but I do want to make sure we cover the actual show, like this season of the show, right? So let's start with Monica and Steven. I thought it was kind of dirty of them to kick off Steven's intro with him talking about cheating. What do you think of them as a couple and that initial confession? Jeramey, your turn.
Good on him for opening up about it. Because I feel like that's a tough one to like after the fact, and like you find out that that's happened before. Like I feel like that's a lot more tough. But I honestly don't know. I don't know. I guess I good for her for accepting that, but also at the same time, it feels like it was just accepted a little too easily. Like we're in a pod situation to where like we are dating other people.
Mm-hmm.
Like constantly. If somebody were to tell me that in the pods, I mean, I'm just not going to do that. Like, I'm gonna move on. There's something I already don't. Right. Like, there's going to be other people that I can talk to, and if I don't like anybody else, then I leave. I just feel like that might have been a little bit too easy of a layover.
Vince, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I feel the same. Honestly, I thought they showed okay, but I would tend to agree with you.
I feel like potentially that wasn't their beginning conversation. It happened later down the line. And that's why it was easy for her to kind of overlook it. She had already developed a connection with him. Because like you said, if somebody had led with saying, oh yeah, I cheated, I'd be like, I'm done with this one. Like we can just move on to the next date.
No, you can tell by we're talking about like body mannerisms here. They're not even like sitting together or anything, so they can't read each other's mannerisms. But even with us being in the pods the first couple of days, you're kind of stiff because you're not used to the cameras being around you. And the way that this man is just like, yeah, I emotionally cheated, like just kind of sprawled out doing it. This was much later down. I don't know how much later, but this was not an opening conversation.
He's a good Love is Blind detective because I would say the exact same thing. Those first couple days, you are pretty like rigid because you have cameras in your face. And you're like, yes. So, Sarah is your name? Okay. And then by like day 5, you're just like, yeah, no. So I emotionally cheated, but it's like.
I went to the bathroom 8 times today. How have you been?
Yeah, that's me.
You start talking about weird things.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
And then I just started working with Fansided, and I wrote an article about kind of my success rate gauge, and I'm terrible at this, but how likely it is that these couples will end up married. So for Monica and Steven, I gave a 50-50. What do you guys think?
Why'd you give him 50-50?
Because I feel like she kind of got and this is another side combo, but the ick when he was talking about when they were chatting on the honeymoon or the pre-honeymoon, and he would not stop talking, according to her. And so I really like their initial connection, but now I feel like, again, stepping out into the real world, it's going to be very different.
So I got that ick part. My theory is that's kind of the most that they have on them, and they're trying to stir in that sense of doubt, because I thought they actually seemed pretty genuine together. But I could be so my theory is like anytime that something seems like forced drama, or they like try to play something up more than it is, it's to give that couple doubt when later on they end up actually being, perfectly fine together. Kind of like the contraception talk between Johnny and Amy.
Oh yeah, that was so played up.
Like it was so blown out of proportion.
Really focus on, blow it up. It gives you doubt in them, but all along they're making it to the end.
Emma says it's a Jeramey Laura situation. She doesn't like him. I don't know that she doesn't like him. I don't think she would have gotten engaged if she didn't like him.
Did she talk about his jokes and Hawaiian shirts or something?
She did, actually. He's only worn Hawaiian shirts this entire time. Jeramey, what do you think the odds are of saying I do?
Not great.
Well, don't you?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't know.
Okay. You didn't get the manual?
No, I don't know anything that's going on. But I don't think so, and it's only because, like, similar to my situation, to where, like, I didn't act different out of the pods than I did in the pods. I was very energetic. I was very, like, bubbly kind of myself, and it was, I can see where Steven is coming from, to where, like, for me, when I was if I were to go out on a date now, I would do things very differently because I've learned a lot more about myself. But then I'm just meeting somebody in person that I've been talking to for 10 days that I'm now engaged to. I'm in a different country with them. I'm thinking that I need to fill the space and create conversation and keep things moving because we were having a great time when we were not seeing each other. So at that point, you're talking too much. You're really excited, but it's coming across to be a lot for somebody. And I think if she is struggling with that with him and making comments about the fact that he talks too much, it's already not going to work out. Like, I can relate to him in that sense, to where, like, you got to fill the space. You want to make sure that that connection's still there and that conversation's still going. Now, does she not like him? Like in my situation where this person just didn't like me? I don't know. But, well, that'll be left to be determined.
It did come off a little bitchy, but yeah, yours I felt was like pretty overt. I was like,
yeah,
kind of like when
there was no hiding mine. And like,
she's not.
No, she was mean to you, and I love Laura, but she was mean to you.
I look back on it now
because I'm the one who like lived in Hawaii. I have my Hawaiian shirt collection, and he got all this Hawaiian shirt attention. I was jealous. I would have been, I would have been in seventh heaven with someone like that.
Yeah. And just to be clear, like we're talking about Laura being mean to me and stuff. Like, I look at it now as like it's kind of funny at this point because it's been so long since all of this really happened. Like, I get that the show came out in February, but we had filmed the previous year before that. It's coming up on 2 years now. I don't hold any hard feelings. I don't hold any animosity towards anybody at this point. It is funny looking back on it now and being like, bro, how did you not see this? You were there dealing with it. What were you not seeing here?
Because Jeramey is like the nicest guy in the world. I'm being 100% serious. Jeramey is extremely nice. So, like, you got to believe people are going out of their way to be hard on him.
And I've said it privately. I don't think I've said it publicly, but like when you look at who's come on the Love Pod, right? Like who's participated in the rescue walks and the trivia competition, you guys are there. There's people who could definitely participate that are not there. I'm not like calling anybody specific out.
No,
but there could be people.
If you want to be nice about things, if you want to, flaunt that style, show up for some fucking animals. Show up for some people. You don't have to have the nicest language all the time, but do something good with your platform.
I will say this: there are some people who rub me the wrong way because when the show came out, I did a lot of we'll call pro bono work, to help people out, review contracts, assist with stuff. And then when the pet rescue launched, and I was like, can you just do like a 10-second spot? Like, the people who really were just like, no, I don't have time for that. I was like, okay, noted. Very much so.
Yeah. Yeah. It really hurts personally. And I know I shouldn't take it personally, but like, somebody asked, and it was probably their manager, so they don't know directly like that this conversation even happened, but they asked how much the pay was to do an appearance. And I'm like, are you kidding? I'm putting this all together for free. And this has become like a full-time job. I can't pay you to show up and compete in trivia for a charity. That would take any of the funds that we got and completely, what's the point of doing it at that time? So again, I believe it was their manager, but still like,
probably still, they need to kind of choke up and do it. But yeah, I know there's some great people from the show. Jeramey's, again, one of the nicest people, and I could make a list and it would be a huge, huge list. Like Chris Fox, Jeramey, just super nice guy.
Who got roasted by Jeramey at the trivia competition.
Come on, man.
Chris, what's it like to wake up every morning to pretend to be a good person? That's probably one of the meanest things I've ever said to somebody.
And his response to it was like the nicest person thing. He's like almost like, oh yeah, I'm
he
sorry.
made me feel bad. Like we were supposed to be roasting each other, and he made me feel bad about what I said.
Oh, that's my fault because I knew my mom was going to end up judging if there was a tiebreaker, and I know how she is. So that kind of, I didn't intentionally set it up that way.
They were too mean.
I
love my
before
mom.
I said it, I was like, how mean do you want me to be? And you guys were like, go for it. And I was like, all right, Chris, what's it like to pretend to be a nice person
I know.
when you wake up?
And if I were, I couldn't be the judge, right? It wouldn't be fair for me to be the judge.
Yeah.
But there were some no-shows who were supposed to be helping out. So we kind of had to improvise there. And if you guys haven't seen it, it's under our YouTube channel. So you can check out Jeramey roasting Chris, as well as another hour of 20 plus Love is Blind cast members getting together. But it was great. Moving on, the next couple, Hannah and Nick. Now I have their odds of saying I do as 10%. I sure as hell hope not. They're just not a match. I think Emma, somebody said like she's just not attracted to him. I think they are just, she's more uptight than he is. He's very fun loving and easygoing. So I do hope like this is one of the couples I'm like, please don't get married. I even was like, please send her home. Like she's not ready to be married.
Who does that sound like?
Anyway, Vince, what do you think their odds are of getting married?
I don't know. There was kind of like another kind of couple that reminded me of from my season, like the splitting, getting back together, and I don't know. I there seemed like almost a little level of toxicity in that situation, and I don't think that was manufactured. So I think their odds are less than 1%.
Jeramey?
I completely agree. They're not going to make that. There's already like spite in like the looks that they're giving each other. Maybe not so much Nick, but definitely from Hannah. And it's weird because if you go to get married, two people have to agree to do that. So I don't see. It's weird how that works here, or at least in the United States, that's how it works. Maybe some places it's different, but
oh, I'm sure it is.
I don't see that one working out.
She kind of reminded me of Zach's ex from, was that season 4?
Oh, Arena.
Is that Zach?
Yeah, the one that broke up on the honeymoon, and then he ended up getting with Bliss.
Yeah. Reminded me of her.
And they have a baby now.
Yeah.
She's Hannah, I'm talking about, not Bliss, is so easily influenced. The girls made some comments about Nick. She broke up with Nick. Then you see her with Leo, and it feels like he was just about to convince her that maybe she should dump Nick again. And thankfully, she has a change of heart, but maybe not, because I really don't think that they're great together. And he's so fun-loving and free-spirited. And she is maybe not. That list, what would you do if you found a list, or it felt like maybe intentionally left out, of 10 things I hate about you, which was the episode title too, Vince?
that I mean, that is just got to be. I'm not staged, but come on.
I guarantee you a producer put that out.
Oh yeah, intentionally.
You think?
It's like,
Oh yeah.
Right in front of them.
Jeramey, do you pack it up and go home if that's what happens? If you find that?
Yeah. It's not even a question. It's like, hey, like it's literally me just like doing one of these, pulling it out, and being like, "Cool, good to know how you feel," and it was fun. And then just you're done.
The weirdest one to me is that she called him delusional, and I don't know if we're missing some context, but I have not seen a single thing that Nick has done that was any level of delusion. And
I can tell you that.
Okay, go for
so
it.
Him being delusional. I mean, he's compared himself to Henry Cavill. He's compared himself to Travis Kelce. Like he's being this like big masculine jock. Now I don't know if it's just me. He doesn't seem like a very big guy. He seems to have this grandiose like image of himself that's just maybe not reality. So I can understand where she's coming from. That's delusional on that.
Okay. Yes. Fair enough.
More to I'm not gonna remember the guy's name. Parks and Rec.
I know who you're talking about.
Who's Fonzie's son on Parks and Rec?
I don't know. If anybody knows in the chat, I know exactly who you're talking about. He ends up getting engaged to Leslie, right?
Henry Winkler's character, their son.
Adam Scott? No. I'm not gonna get it. Okay. That's right. He reminds me of my brother-in-law, but nobody knows who that is, so that's irrelevant. Moving on to Ashley and Tyler. I have their odds of getting engaged prior to finding out some of the things that are coming out now of 70%, but a lot of people do not like them together. So, Jeramey, what do you think the odds of them saying I do are?
I mean, we have to look at the allegations as a totally separate thing because that's not really happening on the show right now. That is in our world.
Right.
So if I'm going based off the show, I would consider it pretty high. I would say that 75% is still pretty good, because the thing with this, and again, going through personal experience with this one, is the way I can imagine that conversation going with them is maybe he does bring it up to her, maybe he doesn't. Who knows at this point? But maybe he brings it up to her, and it could be a pretty sour subject. But they're not dealing with outside influence yet. They're dealing with a conversation between the two of them where they can handle that, and they just figure it out from there. And you have a much higher likelihood of figuring it out versus having the whole world telling you how big of a piece of work you are and all of that, and then that also getting into your partner's head and it just making it worse. I would still say it's pretty high right now.
What about you, Vince?
I thought they were one of the more genuine couples, right?
I do too.
I thought there was a lot of honesty, and they just seemed very sweet together. The person I was thinking of was John Ralphio, by the way.
No, really?
Okay.
Don't be suspicious, guy. Okay.
Him? Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
I don't know how this is going to play out in real life, but I said this just means I need to go to therapy more. The three people who I really zoned in on were Tyler Bowden and Marissa as like my favorites initially. And then I've heard some rumors about things coming out. And so, maybe I just need to keep working on myself because maybe I'm just attracted to red flags. But I really do feel like
the whole kids thing, you mean?
The kids thing and some other, and I don't remember specifically, so I don't want to comment on like things that I'm unsure of, but I feel like there were some other things, maybe money related, that he owes a lot of money to people. And again, I don't deep dive into this too much. This is a hobby for me, but that raised some concerns about my ability to judge character.
I will say when I did that breakdown of like what I thought everybody's going to be like prior to the season, I really am happy that I put extra emphasis on Leo being an art dealer. because that has been one of the biggest subjects. I'm like, man, I really knew him being an art dealer was going to be a thing.
He did say he was going to feature different artists throughout the season, and I've only seen one that he like vaguely mentioned, so I will do it even though I don't have as big of an audience. Mike Tucci Designs is the one who did my art, who does pointillism nail sculptures and canvases. So there's my unofficial plug, doing your dirty work, Leo. Anyway, Vince, Tyler, and Ashley.
The kids thing, if he did not tell her, is so bad. That is something that if you're going to spend the rest of your life with someone, you cannot hide that, right? That is not part of like the kind of like the blind things we hide, like, oh, I have a scar here that embarrassed. No, you have kids, you need to be upfront about that and let somebody know, because they're going to be their kids too.
And part of this, though, I think there's a whole other layer of complexity to this, though. Should he say something? Yes. And if he doesn't, they shouldn't be together. Like, I get that. But from my understanding, they might not be, like, they're his kids, but he's a donor.
There has been a significant amount of photo evidence, I'll say, that is not the case.
Okay.
If anybody follows Story Time with Ricky.
And it could be like a donor case, but I saw a whole bunch today, and it's like, it's enough to say that, again, if he does,
yeah,
like, you gotta say it, even if they're donor kids that are still part of your life because you're taking photo ops with them.
And we don't know that he didn't say anything to Ellie yet. Like, we don't know.
Yeah.
And even if it's not shown, he could have said something.
That could have been a Jeramey situation, right? With the ex-fiance. Like, he could have said it in every single date, and for whatever reason, LIB chose not to show it, and kind of shame on them for not, because it's going to come out.
And look at what it's doing. It is getting so many people talking about it. I mean, it's insane. So whether or not he did or didn't, it's not really the show's job to determine whether, maybe they thought he would disclose it, because of course, if you have 3 children, you're going to talk about that. It's going to be a big thing. Look at how it worked out. Jess was the first one on the show who was a parent, and that turned out to be a whole, who knew how big her influencer career was going to take off. And then having her daughter kind of, I guess, participating and like getting a lot of opportunities that way. So not that was anybody's intention. I don't think that was Jess or Tyler's, but from what's coming out, we didn't see that on the show yet. We don't know how it played out.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Next we have Taylor and Garrett. And of course, I'm leading with the ladies first because I just think that's the polite thing to do. But my odds of them saying yes are 85%. They're a fan favorite this season. And I like their goofiness and their ability to kind of joke around, but also talk about serious topics. So, Jeramey, what are your thoughts on Tyler and Garrett? Taylor and Garrett.
If I have to hope that any of them are getting married, I hope it's them. Garrett, so right off the bat, I was a huge fan of Garrett without even seeing him on the show yet, with him being like an astrophysicist and stuff like that. Like, or no, he either was an astro or quantum physicist. I can't remember which one it is, but he's a physicist either way. And I thought that was the coolest thing of all time. The only hiccup I think that they had, and I also think that Garrett was misunderstood for this, is he seemed like he came off kind of snippy when she wouldn't like disclose what her like ethnicity was. And I don't think that he meant to come off snippy about it. I think that
I don't either.
When he said that she was being calculated, I think he meant to say that, but not the way it was presented. Like, oh, you're being calculated. To me, that came across as you're being calculated in the sense of you're not telling anybody this because you really do want to keep it a secret, not because you don't want anybody to know, what ethnicity you actually are, so you feel like you have a better chance. Like, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. But I do have a lot of high hope for them, and I think that I'll give it like a 90, just for high hopes.
Vince,
I think that there are Johnny and Amy. And
Okay.
you know, if anybody's Henry Cavill, if anyone's Superman, it's him. I thought he's just
I
very,
see that. Yeah.
very genuine. You know, I actually kind of like. He reminded me of Matt from Our Perspective being on the show. Like,
Okay.
just good, clean cut, all American guy.
Maybe talks a little bit more.
Yeah, he talks a little bit more, but like kind of like the Matt they should have shown, right? So, sorry, somebody has opinions.
Very big opinions.
He agrees. So
he's like, Matt, give me milk.
I do think I agree with you, Jeramey. I feel like his hesitance that came across was more like nerves than anything else of like, oh my God, I don't know in general what this person looks like and if this is really going to work out. I don't think it was ill intended in any way. I think people really run with that saying like, oh, he was worried he only likes white women. I don't think that's.
He simply came out and said, he had simply come out and said, I've only ever been with white women. Okay.
Right.
That's not that it matters one way or another, but that's what he said. And then I think he was genuinely like, you're being calculated, like, and like almost complimenting her for being calculated, not why are you being calculated? Like people just love to take things and turn it into a negative aspect. And then the cool thing is, I don't know if you know this, but if you try to fight your opinion on the internet, it usually goes really well.
Yeah, I like to make multiple troll accounts and just fight for fun.
Yeah.
And
you guys don't know my real personality.
And you're the one trolling me?
Shh. Troll Girl 99 is totally not me. And I don't know what you're talking about. And any meanness is not my split personality. That is just complete coincidence.
Good.
Okay. Getting that out there. Moving on. Marissa and Ramses. I think I gave them a 50-50 to 40-60. I gave them a 40-60 of saying yes, because, and a lot of fan speculation led me to this conclusion, but it seemed like he was more into her potentially than she was into him. But I love them together, and I really do hope they are another I do. And I've read that two couples say I do, so I think it might be Taylor and Garrett and Marissa and Ramses. So Vince, your turn to go first. What are the odds for them?
All the couples, they were like my least memorable, not in like a bad way or anything, but kind of for me just flew under the radar, you know. Sure. So I could see like looking back, they're 50-50-ish, but yeah.
All right, Jeramey, your turn.
I mean, I'll give him less than that. I'll give him like 20%, just because like she doesn't like, even at the reveal, he seemed way more into her than she was into him. Yeah, I think first impressions, you can kind of get a quick glimpse of how somebody's going to go. We've seen some very memorable first impressions of people, and usually if it's memorable, it doesn't end up very well. Let's put it that way.
That has to be so awkward, Jeramey. Is it weird to have all these cameras on you and you don't know what this person looks like, but you've told them you love them, and then is there pressure to make out, to really like be over dramatic about how you feel about that person? Because I think that's my number one reason to like not go on a show like this, because I can't. Yeah. My face is very expressive. You're gonna know if I'm where I swing either way.
Yeah, no, it was so it was actually really interesting. So going into that, you think that they'd give you some advice. You get no advice that morning. No advice. And I think if I wasn't, I might have been the first reveal of that day because it was really early in the morning. Or if I wasn't the first, I was the second. And like I remember standing behind the doors with the lights light up and they open the doors up. You stand there for like 15 minutes because they got to get all the different angles and all that different stuff. And nobody's talking to you the entire time. Like, and you're just standing there like, all right, cool. When are they finally going to open the door? And then next thing you know, you see somebody. The initial reveal isn't all that awkward. It's you get 15 minutes with each other. They tell you that you get 15 minutes after the reveal happens, and you get to meet each other. You can do whatever you want. So you can sit on the bench. You can go back to the lounge. Laura and I went back to her room, and we kind of just sat there and talked. And it does get really awkward because you're now face to face with this person. that you've been talking to for 10 days, had no idea what they looked like. You've already said you loved each other. You're engaged to each other now. And you also know that you're on a 15-minute time crunch, so you can't get into a deep subject on anything, but you don't want to be super superficial, but then you've also got cameras around you. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Sounds terrible.
You know, if you raise one eyebrow wrong, people are going to send you death threats.
So here's the, yeah. I'm not going to talk about that.
All right, we'll go on to the last couple, Alex and Tim. Now, I had high hopes for them initially, especially when they were in Mexico, and her and Alexandra were saying like they're definitely getting married to their fiancés, right? Like they are a yes from now. And then one, why weren't the cameras on them when whatever happened happened? And then two, Tim looks so checked out when they meet up after they spent the night separately. And no matter what she says, he's just like staring out in the distance. And we don't know the full story of what happened, but she put her hands on his mouth to cover his mouth. And it sounds like it was very alcohol fueled. But I said 20%. And I think that's even aiming pretty high because I don't even know if they're going to make it out of Mexico together. Vince?
Yeah, there was a level of coldness there that reminded me of I'll relate everything to our season. I'm sorry. They're really great people, Brittany and Ken are, but like this seems more toxic, but season 7. But there seemed like a level of really just going cold and then going like kind of toxic. And
yeah,
when he left, I mean, I do think he'll come back and it'll be part of like one of those shocking moments, but they're not going to survive by any means.
Yeah. Jeramey?
We don't know what actually happened. And like with him like walking off and leaving and all that stuff, like when I supposedly walked off set, like after the whole bean dip thing had happened, and Laura and I kind of got into it a little bit. Like they said I walked off set. I never walked off set. I went to go to the bathroom and they just recorded me walking off set to go to the bathroom. And then that was like the big twist, like, oh, he left. I never left. And there's just so much that's always unknown with this stuff. Like it can be edited in such a way that like, I mean, if somebody put their hands on somebody else, like that's one thing. But like if somebody's walking off or somebody's doing other things, we don't know what actually happened. Honestly, I don't really remember a whole lot about either of them. So I'm not going to give it a really high rating because that's usually not a good sign. I don't think they stay together.
Now, they didn't show whatever happened. So were there moments either in the pods or when you guys obviously go on these vacations and you're in the apartments where the cameras are not on you? Because that seems like something they should definitely show. Jeramey?
I mean, yeah, that whole argument that happened between Laura and I was completely off camera. And the reason I came off, and I'm thinking of Tim right now, the reason I came off so cold during that argument between her and I when I'm sitting in the chair, she's sitting on the couch, it's because the producers came in and were like, oh, you guys have already had this argument. You're going to have this argument again because it was off camera. So I'm sitting there like, I don't want to do this again, which gives her more time to get, poppy with certain things because she was even more pissed off at that point. And that could have been the Tim situation to where like he's coming off extremely cold because we're having to manufacture this argument that really did happen, and now you're making us rehash it again.
Vince, did you feel like there were tense moments for you in the pods where maybe, obviously the cameras are in the pods, but like maybe they should have shown for context, but you just didn't get it?
I mean, again, you didn't see a ton of me in the pods. I think there were some really, really in-depth conversations, and I thought I had, plenty of connections that could have been shown, but ultimately, I didn't end up with anyone, or at least I didn't propose to anyone, which means that, that's not part of the show at that point. I mean, I definitely had some tense moments in the pods where I was trying to really not let my face show what I was thinking, right? Where I had to kind of put my head down and do one of these and be like, but that's the extent for me.
And then I've kept you guys long enough. So we have 2 fan questions and then I'll let you go. So the first one's from Emma Jane 1515. I know the answer to this, but do you guys talk to other cast members? And I would think that you two being together would be proof, but we'll start with you, Vince.
I talk to most of the cast members and I'm very good friends with some, such as Jeramey, who might be my roommate one day. We're BFFs, so
he is pushing for this, man.
He really has, I think the level of, I'll say emotional attraction is deeper for Vince than it is for you, Jeramey. But do you still talk to other cast? Sorry, Vince. I'm sorry. I got to call it like I see it.
Giving us a little rating here. Like, would 50-50? Come on now.
I'll go 60-40 in Jeramey's favor. All right, Jeramey, who do you talk to?
I don't talk to any of the women. When things with Sarah and I happened the way they did, they completely, iced her out of things, and I sided with her on that because that's who I was with. So I don't talk to any of the women. I talk to Vince most days. We're usually sending each other really, really terrible memes. That's kind of our love language. Some of the most awful things. So we do that. I saw Austin not last weekend, the weekend before. See Austin quite a bit. Jamal every once in a while. Who else? Who am I missing? I'm cool with most of the guys. Like I just see Austin and Vince more than anybody.
Austin, who I don't know if we'll ever put out the interview, but he ate the entire interview that we did with him, just chilling, eating breakfast. And I did not know. I can get into a lot of awkward situations with guests, but I did not know what to do with that one because all you could hear was like the clinking of the fork. And
that's the most Austin thing that could have happened.
He's basically the prequel to The Big Lebowski.
That's what it felt like, honestly, now that you say that. And the audio wasn't great, and there were camera issues, and he was like, there was a point where you just saw from like his nose up and then his ceiling fan. So I don't know if that one's going to make it to air, but it was fun to do.
No, you should definitely do it because that is the most Austin interview you will ever have. But like to give you like context, like that's who he is. So I went out with him 2 weekends ago, and we go to this bar that has it's got those punching machines in it. And of course, being all the guys, like all the guys are lined up at it, like, let's see who can hit it the hardest. Sure. Austin does a lot of mixed martial arts and stuff. And he's like, I'm going to kick it. And I'm like, Austin, the floor's wet. Don't kick it. He's like, I'm going to kick it. Okay. So let's do this. He goes up to kick it, complete, like he slips, misses it, and it still goes up. I don't know how he managed to do it, but I'm like even more impressed. He scored a 1 on that machine, which I didn't even know you can do, but then he goes to do it again, completely misses again, and like he's like a train wreck, but in the most positive light. Like,
yeah.
Like, no, it's one of those things where like he's very well put together. He's very well, very articulate. He's a smart guy, and he means very well with things. But you also don't like he might show up at a bar with like constellation style googly glasses on, and you're just like, what am I walking into right now?
I think the best example of Austin I can give is he actually was in the audience at the Matt Rife comedy special, like the Netflix special. And he was very briefly on camera. It would just like happen to be an audience reaction of him. But his friends that were the couple there were the most featured, and their little storyline in like the crowd work that Matt Rife did was the craziest situation. And then you just see Austin sitting next to them. And I was like, I think that's Austin. And if it is, that totally checks out. That tracks for my experience with him. And maybe I'll look for that footage if Jordan still has it. And then the last question I have for you guys is from my mom. We love Mama Ricks here on the show. How do you know when your 15 minutes is up? After Jeramey, you meet at the reveal, and do you guys get to talk to each other after that meeting before you go to your vacation?
I don't know if I understand that question. How do you know your 15 minutes is up? Got it.
Not your 15 minutes of fame. Your 15 minutes of meeting.
What does that have to do with anything? Like
no.
So the 15 minutes is up. It's just like it is in the pods. You have. The producers will come out and be like, hey, you got 1 minute, and then you like know to kind of wrap it up. Because when we're in the pods, you get like a 30-minute notification, you get a 10-minute, and then a 1 minute, and then it's just audio off. But it's the same thing with the reveal. They give you a couple minutes heads up, and then when it's time to leave, they don't pry you away from each other, but it's like, hey, get out. It's time to go.
Sure.
So.
All right. Last thoughts, Vince, on this season. Any impending drama you think is going to come up before we head out for the night?
Ooh. There will be impending drama. There will be a reunion episode.
That is a fact.
Not a reunion, but like our barbecue episode, and there will be something that comes. I don't know what.
I cannot wait for that. Jeramey, last thoughts.
I've heard some rumors that some shit's gonna go down. I've heard some swirlings. So
Can't be that bad. They're not gonna ride off on jet skis into the sunset or anything. You know?
I still maintain that I had the best exit from any reality show of all time.
Yes,
like, it was great. But I do think some. I don't know how valid it is, but I've heard it through the grapevine that some things may go down this season.
I mean, Colton jumped a fence on The Bachelor, so I don't know if you can top that one, but it's up there, maybe like top 5, top 10.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for doing this. I know I kept you far too long. Hopefully the future recaps will be shorter now that we've gotten all the comparisons out of the way. I love you guys. Please follow them on any social media if you don't already. But if you hear, you probably already do. And then you can follow the Love Pod on all the major podcasting apps on YouTube and at Love Pod Podcast on all the socials. Thank you guys. We love you, and we will see you next time.